At 3:06 a.m., something entered your home. Archangel Michael saw it. He says you're not alone anymore. Open this before sunset. At 3:06 a.m., a silence shattered itself. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but waiting. Somewhere between the hum of forgotten dreams and the creaking floor beneath your bed, something entered your home. Not with sound, but with presence. You weren't a thief, yet something was stolen. It wasn't a storm, yet the air turned thick and holy, like something ancient brushing past the veil of your life. You didn't see it, but you felt it. The static in your skin, the chill under your skin, the knowing in your soul. Something had arrived, and nothing in your life would remain untouched. Archangel Michael stood at the corner of your room, not bound by door frames or time. He didn't speak then, but his sword pulsed. He saw it. He saw what entered. A thing not of flesh but influence. A whisper in your hallway. A distortion in the mirror. He waited, not to act, but to see what you would do when morning came. Because there are moments when the heavens wait. Moments when the divine doesn't intervene immediately but watches how you respond to what lurks unseen. You weren't alone anymore, but that was not meant to terrify you. It was a call, a summons, a trial. A message didn't come through thunder. It came later, written into your day through small signs. The ringing phone with no color. The flickering light that wasn't faulty. The crow at your window. And finally, the phrase that echoed louder than your thoughts. Open this before sunset. It wasn't a metaphor. It wasn't poetic. It was instruction. Something entered at 3:06 a.m., and the sunset would determine whether it remained or was cast out. Whether your name would remain written in light or smudged into shadow. This is not superstition. This is not paranoia. This is spiritual reality bleeding through the edges of the material world. You are now on sacred ground, though it looks like your kitchen. You are now watched, though it feels like loneliness. Every movement from now until sunset matters. Because Michael saw what entered, and he is still here. Not to fight for you, yet, but to reveal whether you will rise or remain asleep while something devours your peace, your family, your finances, your clarity. When something enters at 3:06 a.m., it does not knock. It does not whisper politely or ask permission. It leaves a residue, a spiritual fingerprint on everything it brushes. That's what Michael saw. That's what now clings to the corners of your home, the folds of your blankets, the echo in your chest. You've already felt it. You just didn't know how to name it. A cold burst of air in a closed room. A shadow behind your reflection. A sleep that didn't refresh you. This isn't paranoia. It's prophetic residue. Something entered, and your atmosphere knows it. Archangel Michael did not unsheath his sword. Not yet. Because not all battles require immediate force. Some require testing. What entered your home at 3:06 did not come with claws, it came with intentions. And intention is more dangerous than attack. It came not to destroy outright, but to observe, to wait, to choose where to root itself. You are not being haunted. You are being watched, by both sides. What Michael observed was the moment something non-human took interest in you. Not just your space, but your calling, your potential, your soul's weight. Type I am rising to get the blessing 4896. You woke up tired because something drained you. Not physically but spiritually. You walked through your morning like you were dragging invisible chains. That's not coincidence. It's contamination. The enemy never announces itself with smoke and fire. It often arrives as fatigue, delay, confusion, repeated misfortune. But heaven always sends confirmation before confrontation. That's what this is. This writing, this timing, it is Michael's confirmation. What entered did not go unnoticed. What you're experiencing is not normal. And it never was. But now, the angelic realm is intervening through revelation. The markings left in your atmosphere are spiritual barcodes. They signal to both darkness and light that this territory has been touched, that your soul is in negotiation. And this is why the day matters. This is why sunset is not symbolic. It is spiritual law. What you do before the sky turns gold will finalize the entry or expulsion of this presence. You are the deciding gate. You are the open scroll. At 3:06 a.m., the writing began. But at sunset, the verdict is sealed. Tapai Modded to Good Blessing 9999. Michael does not hover for drama. He is present because an assignment is activated. He is watching how you respond to the subtle signs. He is waiting for your agreement, not just in words but in actions. Will you purge what needs to go? Will you confront what you've ignored? Will you pray differently, speak differently, walk differently today? Every move counts now. This is not exaggeration. This is sacred warfare, and time is dripping like oil across the clock. Heaven has declared urgency. Michael is not here to comfort. He is here to catalyze. There are things that have stayed too long, things that entered your lineage, your patterns, your home. They felt comfortable because they were never challenged. But this morning changed everything. You've been marked for interruption. The kind of holy interruption that turns curses into altars. What entered wasn't just darkness, it was a test. Not of your strength, but of your awareness. Will you treat today like yesterday? Or will you rise before the sun sets? Because the presence that stepped into your house at 3:06 didn't just visit. It's waiting for your decision. This is your line in the sand. Heaven won't drag you forward, but it will equip you if you move. Open your mouth. Declare authority over your space. Anoint your doorposts. Cancel unspoken agreements. Speak aloud what must leave. The day is not ordinary. This hour has been charged. You are not imagining the shift. You're being asked to answer it. And if you respond, what entered can be expelled. What haunted can be holy. But if you delay, it roots deeper. Let Michael see your will rise. Tapai will answer to receive the blessing 7821. This morning, when you looked in the mirror, something felt wrong. Not horrifying, just altered. Your face was yours, but something behind your eyes seemed deeper, quieter, more alert. That was not imagination. The mirror reflects more than bone and skin. It's a spiritual surface. And when something crosses the threshold of your home, especially at 3:06 a.m., it doesn't just affect your space. It affects your reflection, your essence, your image. Because the face you see each morning is a window for unseen things to watch through. Something looked back at you today. Not demonic, yet not benign either. Archangel Michael stood near. Not visible in the mirror, but his presence bent the light. That's why your breath caught for a moment. Your soul recognized him even if your mind didn't. The reason mirrors hold weight in spiritual warfare is because they carry residue. They absorb atmosphere. And today, the atmosphere hath been charged since the moment the veil split in your home. What looked back at you in the mirror wasn't possession. It was proximity. An echo of the encounter. Michael saw it. He watched the way your spirit shifted when you looked into your own eyes. Type I will not be deceived to get the blessing 6103. Your reflection today was asking you a question. Who are you letting in? You see, access doesn't always require invitation. It only requires agreement, spoken or silent. Spirits often anchor themselves through complacency, a delayed prayer, a tolerated habit, a repeated sin masked as a survival mechanism. That's why the mirror felt different. Because what entered at 306 isn't just looking for a place to stay, it's looking for a face to wear. It studies your features, your language, your desires. If you don't reclaim the mirror today, it will become a window instead of a guard. Michael is a warrior, but also a sentinel. He studies your movements, your hesitation. He's not watching to condemn. He's observing because he's waiting for the order, not from heaven, but from you. Because authority has already been delegated. What you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. What you lose in this hour determines the temperature of your next season. That's why the mirror trembled. That's why your heart pounded for no reason. It's not emotional, it's prophetic. You're being pushed toward declaration. And if you stay silent, your silence becomes permission. I claim my authority to get blessing 8327. The mirror is more than glass. It's a place where heaven and hell both try to speak identity. You've forgotten who you are. But what entered has not. It knows your power. It knows your bloodline. It knows your prayers from years ago, the ones you whispered and forgot, but the realm of spirit did not. That's why it came now, to catch you when you were distracted, wounded, overwhelmed. But heaven chose this moment too. Michael came not just to warn, but to reawaken what you buried. He's not here to do the work for you, but he will shield you while you act. You must speak aloud to your reflection. Strange as it feels, you must call yourself back into alignment. Say your full name. Proclaim, I belong to light. I will not host what heaven did not assign. The mirror is listening. The walls are listening. So is the spirit that entered and still hovers, waiting for passivity. Today, you either rise in declaration or give consent by indecision. There is no middle ground. Sunset is not a poetic warning. It is a legal deadline in the courts of the spirit. Michael won't wait forever. Neither will the intruder. You still have time, but it is shrinking. The mirror is no longer a routine habit. It is a battleground. Look again. Speak again. Confront the unease in your gut, the flicker in your eye, the fatigue in your bones. That's where the residue clings. It's in the silence of mornings like this that generational cycles are broken or repeated. And heaven has paused just long enough to see what you will do next. You are not being haunted. You are being summoned. What looked at you through your own face today is waiting for your answer. To be, act, decide. If this word has touched your spirit and stirred a fresh sense of boldness within, we invite you to respond with a super thanks of $20. Your support allows us to continue offering prophetic insight, comfort, and strength to those navigating the journey from betrayal to breakthrough. You can also give through PayPal by clicking the support here link in the video description. Every gift, no matter the size, helps us reach more hearts with messages of hope, truth, and encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you stay connected to spirit-led direction, timely revelation, and words of life designed to uplift you in every season. Type I reclaim my reflection to receive the blessing 9044. At 3:06 a.m., the hallway spoke, not in words you could hear with your ears, but in vibrations only your spirit could register. A subtle shift in atmosphere, a pressure against your ribs, a pause between heartbeats. The corridor between your bedroom and the outer rooms became a bridge, not just in your home, but in the spirit. Something passed through it. It did not rush. It moved with confidence, with entitlement, as though it had already been there before. It did not need a door. It needed access, and access was given when silence was accepted in place of discernment. Archangel Michael stood at the entry of that hallway, watching, not blocking it, yet, because what moved through needed to reveal itself to you, needed to show you what you've allowed to linger too long. It wasn't merely a dark spirit, it was a reminder of unchecked thresholds, a forgotten grief, a never-healed wound, a bitterness swallowed in silence. Hallways are liminal spaces, transitions between realms. That's why it moved through there. That's why you felt the air tighten when you passed by the frame. That was not imagination. That was a signal. One you are now being forced to acknowledge. I close every doorway to receive the blessing 7204. It didn't come to possess, it came to partner. It studies your loneliness, your sleepless nights, your muted prayers. It speaks softly, but not with affection, with familiarity. It speaks in your own voice, echoing doubts you've already entertained. That's the danger. Not shrieks or horror, but mimicry. It speaks the same language as your trauma. It enters through agreement, not invasion. And so, you must confront it like a covenant, not a ghost. You don't need sage. You need sovereignty. Michael remains near, but he cannot cancel what you continue to consent to. That's your responsibility. The whisper in the hallway said, "You're always alone." You didn't hear it in words, but you accepted the thought. It said nothing will change. And you nodded in silence. These aren't just bad feelings. They are seeds, planted in midnight corridors, watered by your fatigue. You've walked past that hallway too many times without prayer, too many times without oil, without declaration. That's how access was granted, not through ritual, but neglect. Heaven is pointing now, pointing directly at the doorway you ignored. That frame is not wood. It is a spiritual gate. Type I revoke access to get the blessing 6671. Michael is not passive. He waits with his sword still sheathed only because your voice has not yet commanded. The authority is already yours. But the longer you wait, the more the presence adapts to your space. You must anoint that hallway. You must speak out loud over it. No more whispering. No word dwelling. This corridor belongs to light. Declare it even if your voice trembles. Walk the length of it 3 times and reclaim what you abandoned. The whisper wants to become a conversation, then a lifestyle. Kill it before it settles. You don't need to see the figure to know it exists. You've already felt it. The hairs on your arms, the weight on your chest, the sigh you couldn't explain. Stop asking for confirmation and start releasing warfare. This is not the time to question if you're imagining it. You aren't. This is the time to respond. You've prayed for change. This is how it begins. Not in dramatic visions, but in still, dark hallways where heaven and hell both wait to see what you'll say. This is spiritual strategy. This is heaven revealing what's been hiding. You are not crazy. You are called. You are not alone. You are assigned. The corridor was only quiet because your discernment was dulled. But this morning changed everything. Now you see. Now you know. And now, the heavens are waiting for your next move. Walk in. Pray over it. Claim it. What entered at 306 doesn't expect you to fight back. That's why it came. To move in without resistance. But now, Michael stands ready. His eyes are on your mouth. Speak. Or claim your home from the hallway out. Type I break the silence to receive the blessing 8832. There's a clock in your house that stopped ticking. You may not have noticed it at first. Maybe it hung quietly above the kitchen doorway, or sat on a shelf near the window, its hands frozen just shy of the hour. But it wasn't a battery issue. It wasn't age. It was alignment. Time responds to spiritual shift, and when something entered your home at 3:06 a.m., it disrupted not just your atmosphere, but your time. Because what entered didn't just bring presence, it brought delay, stagnation, interruption, and the clock caught it before you did. Michael sees more than movement. He sees momentum, and something has been robbing yours. A stuck clock is a symptom, a visual prophecy, an alarm wrapped in silence. The moment it stopped was the moment something coiled itself around your progress. Projects left half-finished. Calls delayed. Financial clarity murky. Dreams suspended in midair. You thought it was life being difficult. But heaven says, no. That was theft. A spiritual freezing. A pause summoned not by heaven's timing, but by infiltration. Something crawled into your rhythm and pressed pause. And your soul has been echoing that ever since. Type I break delay to receive the blessing 7012. At 3:06 a.m., the moment the veil trembled in your home, the spirit of delay slithered in. Not loud, not monstrous, but surgical. It waited until your guard was down, until you stopped checking the time spiritually. Delay does not always come as bad luck. Sometimes it looks like distraction. Sometimes it feels like tiredness. Sometimes it hides in routines that feel safe but produce nothing. That's how you've been tricked. Because time is not just measured in minutes, it's measured in movement. And heaven is calling out. You have stood still too long. The clock wasn't just a machine. It was a mirror. You stopped ticking too. Your spirit stopped anticipating. Your faith stopped advancing. You prayed but not expecting anything to happen. You worked, but not believing it would break through. Delay had become your default, and the one who entered at 3:06 fed on that. It doesn't need to destroy your house. It only needs to convince you to settle in stillness. But Michael is now standing over the hour hand. His blade points at the frozen moment, and he's asking, will you move again? Type I activate divine momentum to get the blessing 7788. Here is a sound heaven is waiting for. Your voice commanding movement. You must speak to your time. Declare, my days are not stolen. My hours are not delayed. What belongs to me will arrive in divine order. It may feel strange, but clocks respond to faith. The realm of spirit respects authority spoken aloud. Michael is not asking for superstition. He's calling for spiritual precision. Your calendar must be reclaimed. Your plans resurrected. Your pace restored. The assignment over your life was never canceled. It was paused, but today it unfreezes. Walk through your house. Lay your hand on every timepiece, digital, analog, phone screen or watch. Anoint them with intent. I walk in God's timing, not in demonic detours. Delay thrives where time is taken for granted. But today, you're turning every second into sacred ground. You've given enough hours to confusion, enough days to waiting rooms, Enough weeks to cycles that never close. Now, you move with heaven again. Tick by tick. Step by step. Heaven won't fast forward your life, but it will reignite the clock when you command it. This is your hour of alignment. Don't just pray, declare. Don't just hope, command. Time is a servant, not a master. It bends under the authority of the anointed. What entered at 306 hoped to slow you, to quiet your progress, but it didn't expect resistance. It didn't expect that today you'd hear Michael's voice echo through the silence of your paused hour. It didn't expect that the hands of your life would begin to turn again. But they will, if you command them. Time is not lost. It's waiting for your word. Type I command time to align to receive the blessing 9920. The window near your bed is more than glass. It's a lens, a portal, a place where realms glance into each other. This morning you sensed it, didn't you? That hesitation before pulling back the curtain. A chill that didn't match the temperature. The shift wasn't in the weather, it was in the spirit. What entered your home at 3:06 a.m. did not just occupy, it observed. The window has become its post, not to enter through, but to watch from. That's why it always feels like something is staring, because something is. Archangel Michael is stationed near it now, not to admire the morning sky, but to intercept the gaze. Because there is something, an intelligence, not a ghost, that watches from the threshold of light. It does not need to come inside if it can influence from a distance. Your window has become a channel, a mirror for motive. And while you went about your morning routine, unaware, it waited, watching your habits, watching your silence, watching your hesitation. It can't possess a house where a warrior lives, but it can hover. And that's what it's doing. Type I shut every gaze to receive the blessing 6711. There's a reason you've been waking between 3 and 4 a.m. A reason sleep comes in fragments. The watcher doesn't need to speak. It needs only to unsettle. It works through suggestion, through a presence that makes you question your instincts. You thought it was anxiety. You thought it was restlessness. But now, heaven says, no. You are being monitored. But not in fear, in strategy. And your response must be equal in force. You must treat your window like a battleground, not a decoration. Because windows are how spirits study patterns. The gaze is not just external. It pulls at your internal agreements. Insecurity, guilt, apathy. The watcher waits for your weakest hour, and then whispers not in words, but in weight. A heaviness that lingers even after prayer. That is why your room feels colder near the sill. Why you instinctively look away while walking past it at night. You've been sensing its attention, but now, Michael brings clarity. This is not the devil in the movies. This is the spirit of surveillance, a subtle parasite of destiny, and it must be confronted with fire. Type I anoint every opening to get blessing 7566. Open your windows, not to let it out, but to declare ownership. Speak into the air. This window is not for watching. It is for light, for promise, for revelation. Then close it with authority. Anoint the quarters. Clean the glass. This is prophetic warfare disguised as housekeeping. The enemy does not fear oil, but he fears a believer who uses it with understanding. Michael stands at the latch, waiting for your signal. Because heaven doesn't seal what you've left open, and your voice is the final lock. Speak, and the gaze must break. You may not see eyes, but you've seen their result. You've noticed tension where there should be peace. Accidents that happen just outside your home. Confusion in those you live with. The enemy does not always enter to destroy. It sometimes hovers to disrupt. The Watcher's presence isn't always meant to attack. Sometimes it's meant to collect information, weakness, strategy. You've been under spiritual surveillance. But today you declare, no more. What watched you at 3:06 a.m. will now see your authority rise like smoke from holy fire. This is your moment to blind the gaze. The Watcher has lingered too long. It hoped you'd keep the curtains drawn, both literally and spiritually. It hoped you'd stay passive, half awake, too afraid to confront a presence you couldn't fully name. But now the name has been revealed, and where names are spoken, power is claimed. Michael does not stand by passively. He's ready to command. But your authority initiates the strike. What was watching now knows it have been seen, and seen things must answer. Shut the gaze. Seal the space. Anoint the view. Type I blind every watcher to receive the blessing 8419. There's a shadow in your home that doesn't obey the sun. It doesn't stretch with the afternoon or vanish in the brightness of noon. It's not tied to light. It's tied to presence. It followed you this morning from room to room, didn't it? Not clearly. Just at the edge of your vision. Behind your left shoulder. Past the stairwell. It wasn't your imagination. It wasn't fatigue. The shadow doesn't belong to any object in your house. It belongs to a presence that attached itself at 3:06 a.m. It doesn't need darkness. It creates it. Michael has watched it. Not with alarm, but with divine strategy. Because this shadow had been subtle. It's not violent. It's loyal. Loyal to the spirit that entered your atmosphere. It doesn't slam doors or scream in your ear. It waits. It lingers. It mimics the rhythm of your steps so precisely that you almost believe it's just another flicker. But today you felt the shift. You felt that weight behind you that wasn't there yesterday. You turned, saw nothing, and still didn't feel alone. Michael saw it too. That was no ordinary shadow. Tapa cast out the false presence to receive the blessing 7355. Shadows that linger without source are not artistic tricks. They are spiritual indicators. This one is tied to your hesitation, to the prayers you almost prayed, the apologies you never made, the bitterness you justified. That's how it found its anchor, not in a ritual, but in emotional residue. These things draw spirits like scent draws wolves. The shadow doesn't have power unless it's partnered with, and silence is a partnership. Drugging it off is permission. You must name it. Not the demon. Your agreement. What did you leave unresolved that now gives it room? It doesn't want your body, it wants your routine. It wants to be carried from kitchen to car, from hallway to phone screen. A spiritual hitchhiker. It watches how you speak when no one's listening. It loves lukewarm words. Loves internal conflict. It feeds on double-mindedness. That's why you've been feeling spiritually congested. That's why your focus slips, your tongue tightens, your clarity fogs. It's not a coincidence. It's a side effect of shadow proximity. And Michael won't strike until you command it. Until you stop accommodating what you're meant to cast out. Tapai sever spiritual residue to get blessing 8890. Take back your airspace. Shadows-eyed word declarations don't exist. Walk your home. Speak aloud. There is no neutral space here. Every corner belongs to light. Every step is sanctified. Don't wait for goosebumps. Move with faith. Because what clings to you doesn't need terror to stay. It needs your silence. Anoint the spaces where the shadow lingered. Light a candle if you must, but let your words be louder than the flame. Speak like someone who understands the stakes. Speak like someone who knows that delay is agreement. Michael is listening. You are the thermostat of your environment. If you allow the atmosphere to remain lukewarm, shadows will grow roots. If you burn hot with awareness, they flee. You've been wondering why things feel off, why blessings feel blocked, why progress feels like walking through molasses. This is why. The shadow doesn't scream, but it slows. It doesn't strike, but it stifles. It doesn't enter with force, it follows with familiarity. It's been around long enough to feel normal. But today, heaven declares, its lease is up. You must evict what you tolerated. Cast it out with finality. This part of the battle is not about fear, it's about fire. You are not weak. You are not victim to atmospheres. You are the appointed gatekeeper of your house, your thoughts, your walk. The shadow is not your reflection. It's an intruder. And now, because you're reading this, heaven holds you responsible for what you do next. You don't need to shout. You just need to believe what you say. Speak like light. Move like fire. Break the partnership of silence and let the sword of your word be drawn. Michael is ready. If this word has touched your spirit and stirred a fresh sense of boldness within, we invite you to respond with a super thanks of $20. Your support allows us to continue offering prophetic insight, comfort, and strength to those navigating the journey from betrayal to breakthrough. You can also give through PayPal by clicking the support here link in the video description. Every gift, no matter the size, helps us reach more hearts with messages of hope, truth, and encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you stay connected to spirit-led direction, timely revelation, and words of life designed to uplift you in every season. Type I walk in light only to receive the blessing 9182. This morning, as you moved through your home, you heard something. A whisper, soft but precise. A voice called a name. It wasn't shouted. It didn't echo. It was tucked into the air, hidden like a thread in the wind. At first, you thought it was your name, but it wasn't. It was close, barely close, but not exact. And that was intentional. Because what entered at 3:06 a.m. doesn't call to you directly. It imitates, mimics, distorts, hoping you'll answer anyway, hoping you'll respond to the wrong name, and in doing so, give it access to your identity. Archangel Michael tilted his head when it happened. Not in surprise, but in study. You watched how you paused, how your body turned instinctively toward the sound. He saw the temptation to answer it, because spiritual realms move not just by command, but by recognition. What you respond to becomes what you welcome. And that name, that almost your name, was not just a sound. It was a baited hook, a trigger, a test. Michael waited, not for the whisper to stop, but to see if you would agree with it. Type I only answer to heaven's call to receive the blessing 7734. It may have sounded harmless, familiar even. But what you heard was not meant to be heard. It was meant to be obeyed. You see, spirits call names the way fishermen cast lines. They don't need to drag you in. They just need you to bite, to turn your attention, to align, even for a second. That's how covenants begin, through a glance, a pause, a shift of the will. You thought you were just distracted, but Michael knew better. That sound was trying to mark you, trying to imprint something false on your spiritual record. It wasn't your name because the enemy can't speak it in full. Your real name is sealed in heaven, written in a tone only the divine can utter with authority. But this whisper was a counterfeit. It mimicked your name to lure you toward a false assignment. If you had answered, your day would have shifted. You would have moved in subtle rebellion against yourself. Small detours, misplaced priorities, mental fog. Not demonic oppression, strategic misalignment. That's how these spirits work. They don't always destroy. They distort. Type I reject false callings to get blessing 8640. You may be thinking, but I didn't respond. I ignored it. And yes, that matters. But even your hesitation was measured. Heaven noticed your pause. That's why Michael remained still. Because even a flicker of interest toward the wrong voice creates a ripple. And now that you're aware, you must act. Go to the space where you heard the sound. Declare loudly, I only respond to the voice of the Lord. Every other voice is silenced. Every false name is canceled. Your atmosphere must hear it. So must the spirit that dares to speak again. Your name carries a spiritual blueprint. When heaven speaks it, angels move. When darkness attempts it, they distort the sound, hoping to forge a counterfeit identity. That's what nearly happened this morning. Had you answered, even mentally, you would have walked in a version of your life never assigned to you. One step off, 1 degree shifted. It's all it takes to miss destiny over time. But you're here now. You're being corrected, recentered, recalled. And the whisper has been identified. The mimic has been exposed. Michael is pleased, but your voice must now finalize the rejection. Every time you hear your name moving forward, pause. Ask the spirit. Is it rising in your chest with peace, or does it drift in from the edge of reason? Don't be flattered by the familiar. Be anchored in the authentic. Your real name is not just a word, it's a weapon. When heaven speaks it, chains break. When darkness mimics it, assignments shift. Do not answer every voice. Do not turn toward every call. Today, reclaim your identity by sealing it aloud. I answer only to God. My name belongs to glory. My name is fire. Type I reclaim my true name to receive the blessing 9055. You heard it just before dawn. A door creaked and shut on its own. No wind. No footsteps. No reason. It happened quickly, but the sound hum in the air like thunder trapped in silence. Doors don't close themselves unless something is moving. You tried to reason with it. Maybe it wasn't latched. Maybe it was just airflow. But deep down, your spirit tensed. Because the timing wasn't random. At 3:06 a.m., that door moved for a reason. What entered your home is now moving through it. Not randomly, but deliberately. It is choosing which spaces to close behind. Archangel Michael stood at that very door when it happened. He did not panic. He measured. Because closed doors in the spirit are never just about rooms. They are about realms. Something is being sealed, either by divine protection or by demonic strategy. And Michael watched closely to discern which one. The sound of a door closing in the spirit is either a warning or a confirmation. If you ignore it, you misinterpret the entire hour. This wasn't just movement. It was messaging. And the door that shut itself was speaking to you in symbols. Type I will not ignore divine signs to receive the blessing 6880. Doors are spiritual declarations. Every one of them holds agreement or authority. Some let in blessing, others block breakthrough. The door that closed on its own wasn't just reacting, it was responding. Responding to a presence that moved in your home undetected until now. That spirit, what entered at 306, is trying to create isolation. It seals off areas so it can move freely without resistance. It thrives in separation. The more parts of your life you compartmentalize, the more room it has to operate in secret. That closed door wasn't just a signal. It was a strategy. Michael's sword hovered near the frame. He knew this was a turning point. Because once a spirit begins to claim territory, it sets up gates, thresholds. And if you don't walk back through that door with boldness, it may not reopen easily. The enemy always tries to close what heaven tries to keep accessible. Whether that door led to a room, a journal, a memory, or a decision, you must go back. You must confront it. You must declare aloud, nothing in this house will close without heaven's decree. Type I reopen what God designed to get blessing 7442. Have you noticed how lately certain areas of your life feel locked? Conversations that once flowed now feel blocked. Opportunities that were once near now drift. Even people who used to be close now feel distant. It's the spirit of sealed spaces. It moves quietly but effectively, closing access one decision at a time. You can't allow it. You must become the one who walks through every door and declares ownership. Open closets. Speak into closed offices. Don't just check locks, check legacies. You must anoint every frame in your home. Heaven is waiting. Because that closed door didn't just signal limitation, it tested your authority. The question wasn't what closed it, but will you open it again? Will you reclaim access? Will you challenge the silence? You've been quiet long enough. Too respectful of spiritual boundaries that darkness doesn't deserve. This is your home, your calling, your hour. And doors that close by shadow must be reopened by fire. Michael stands in position, but he will only move when your voice matches the weight of your assignment. Heaven needs your word to finalize what it's waiting to restore. This is the moment to take the key. Spiritually, literally. Speak aloud as you open every door. Access restored. Alignment returned. No spirit governs my space but God. You not fear what tried to isolate you. Expose it. The closed door was never a warning to retreat. It was a call to advance. A prophetic dare to confront what hath been hiding. What entered at 3:06 a.m. closed a door. But today, you're unlocking something ancient. Something holy. And once opened with fire, it cannot be sealed by darkness again. Type I reopen my inheritance to receive the blessing 8197. You heard it again, just past morning, when the air was still and quiet. A sound, distant but too close. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't natural. It didn't belong to anything in your home. It came from nowhere, yet it filled the room. A low hum, a soft knock, a metallic clang that echoed just once, then disappeared. It wasn't meant to terrify you. It was meant to confirm something. That what entered at 3:06 a.m. is still present, and it's no longer just observing. It's making itself known. Subtly, totally, strategically. And heaven is listening for your response. Archangel Michael turned his head sharply when it happened. His sword didn't rise. His spirit did. because sound is one of the oldest languages in creation. Before form, there was frequency. Before light, there was voice. And what entered your home knows that. It understands how to signal its presence through tone, vibration, disruption. The sound you heard wasn't just random. It was a pulse, a marker, a spiritual ripple meant to see if you'd shrug it off or stand up. Because every sound in the unseen realm is either an alarm or an invitation. Type I discern every sound to receive the blessing 7801. You felt your chest tighten right after. You paused mid-task. You tilted your head like you were chasing something. That was your spirit recognizing what your ears couldn't explain. The sound had weight, and that weight carried intent. It wasn't trying to scare you, it was testing you. Would you investigate it spiritually, or dismiss it naturally? That's the trap. If the enemy can make you normalize spiritual signals, he doesn't need to attack. He can stay undetected. But today, that ends. You are not confused. You are being calibrated. The noise didn't repeat because it didn't need to. Just once was enough to trigger a pattern. Distraction, anxiety, envy. It hoped you'd explain it away and go numb. That's how these spirits operate, not with screams, but with slivers. Small interruptions, audible warnings, echoes of movement. It knocked to test your gates. It rang to map your response. And heaven waited to see if you'd speak or stay silent. You are not a passive listener anymore. You are a guardian. And now, you must answer the sound with something louder. Your voice. Type I respond with authority to get blessing 8692. Walk to the place where the sound came from. Even if it's unclear. Speak into that space. I answer to no voice but heaven's. No sound has power here unless it is divine. Anoint the floor. Touch the walls. Declare that your home is a sanctuary, not a testing ground. You don't need to hear it again to act. That's the mistake most people make, waiting for repeated evidence before moving in faith. But Michael is moving based on your first declaration. One word from your mouth can shift the entire frequency of your house. You noticed more than just sounds. Electronics blinking. The fridge humming oddly. A vibration in the wall without source. These aren't defects, they're distortions. When a spiritual presence settles, it warps the natural. That's what's happening now. Your environment is speaking. You're willing. Responding. Don't ignore these messages. Interpret them. Heaven is giving you a chance to respond before escalation. Because next time, the sound may not just be a knock. It may be a name, a lie, a suggestion. And if you don't anchor your home now, those whispers may find a way in. You have the power to reset the atmosphere. Lay worship aloud. Speak scripture in every corner. Use your own voice to release frequency that fights back. Heaven doesn't require theatrics, just truth, spoken boldly. You are not helpless. You are the thermostat of the spiritual climate around you. The sound came to test if you'd stay reactive. But now you're responding prophetically. What entered at 3:06 a.m. will now hear the sound of a rising warrior. And once your voice rises, the intruder loses its foothold. If this word has touched your spirit and stirred a fresh sense of boldness within, we invite you to respond with a super thanks of $20. Your support allows us to continue offering prophetic insight, comfort, and strength to those navigating the journey from betrayal to breakthrough. You can also give through PayPal by clicking the support here link in the video description. Every gift, no matter the size, helps us reach more hearts with messages of hope, truth, and encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you stay connected to spirit-led direction, timely revelation, and words of life designed to uplift you in every season. Type I release divine frequency to receive the blessing 9445. This morning, the air changed. It wasn't obvious at first. A scent brushed past your nose, faint, strange, familiar. It didn't match anything burning, cooking, or perfumed. It wasn't incense or dust. It was memory. A smell tied to something you once felt, once feared, once endured. The scent pulled at something buried. And that was the point. What entered at 3:06 a.m. is now reaching into your emotional archive, dragging forgotten experiences into your current atmosphere. The scent wasn't just strained. It was strategic. It carried memory to try and reopen wounds heaven already sealed. Archangel Michael stepped forward when it happened. Because scent, in the spirit, is often a portal. It's how unclean spirits reattach to old agreements. They don't always need blood or sin. They need memory. And memory, when unhealed, becomes access. Michael watched the moment it hit your senses. He saw your chest tighten, your mind drift, your thoughts wander to a place you thought you'd escaped. That was no accident. That was a spiritual tactic. The scent wasn't random. It was a trigger. A coded attempt to remind you of who you used to be so you'd abandon who you're becoming. Tap I close the scent of old wounds to receive the blessing 7322. You stood there for a moment, confused. Maybe you even checked the stove, or glanced toward the door, wondering what it was. But nothing explained it. That's because it wasn't natural. It was released. The one that entered your home has now begun activating the senses to manipulate your state. If it can reawaken your past, it can detour your present. Your healing is under review, not by heaven, but by hell. And this morning was a test. Would the scent drag you backward or drive you to confront what's unfinished? It wasn't just a smell. It was a memory wrapped in fragrance. And memories that go unhealed become magnets. Emotional residue is spiritual invitation. That scent, perhaps of an old hospital, a childhood room, a person long gone, was not about nostalgia. It was about infiltration, to make you relive what God already redeemed, to bait your agreement with regret. Michael saw it all. He stood between you and that door, blade drawn, ready to strike, but heaven was waiting for you to say something first. Because your authority closes what memory opens. Type I seal my past with glory to get blessing 8606. You must speak to the scent. This home is not a museum. It does not carry the fragrance of fear. I walk in present truth, not recycled pain. Speak this aloud, even if your voice cracks. Walk the room where you notice the shift. Open the windows if you must, not for ventilation, but for confrontation. Let the air know you're where, because atmosphere is legal ground in the spirit, and what you speak into it becomes law. You don't owe your past another glance. What once hurt you cannot haunt you unless you breathe it back to life. The spirit of memory is sneaky. It comes softly, not to possess, but to weaken. To make your strength feel like a lie, to make your progress feel like luck, to turn victories into coincidences. But you're not going back. What entered at 3:06 a.m. thought you'd sniff, pause, and spiral. What you didn't. You're still here. Reading. Rising. Responding. That alone is warfare. That alone makes Michael shift his stance from defense to advance. Because now heaven knows. You're aware. And awareness is fire in the eyes of the realm that fears your voice. You didn't imagine that scent. You discerned it. And now, you break it. You are not the memory. You are the miracle. You are not the scent. It was sent to test your threshold. But your threshold is fortified. Your atmosphere is holy. Every breath you take from this point forward is fire-laced. When you inhale, healing enters. When you exhale, history dies. Walk forward now. Do not linger. There is no fragrance from your past strong enough to drag you from the future you're already walking into. Taught I breathe only heaven's air to receive the blessing 9116. You passed by a mirror again today, but this time, it moved first. Not with words, not with violence, but with timing. Your reflection shifted before your body did. It blinked half a second too early. It leaned when you hadn't leaned yet. You thought it was just your mind playing tricks. But your spirit tensed. Because something isn't right with the glass anymore. That mirror, once a routine object, has become reactive. What entered at 3:06 a.m. didn't just hover. It embedded. And now, the spirit is testing threshold of perception. Archangel Michael was already standing behind you when it happened. The angel wasn't startled, but focused. His sword hummed, not with fear, but with anticipation. Because when a mirror starts behaving out of sync, it's not broken, it's breached. You didn't imagine it. That half-second shift wasn't your eyes. It was a spirit trying to announce its intention. To shift the atmosphere not through invasion but distortion. Mirrors, like portals, reflect what lingers nearby. And today, it reflected something that mimics you. Something trying to move before you do so it can claim authorship of your actions. Type I reflect only the divine image to receive the blessing 8221. What you saw wasn't your future self. It wasn't a dream. It was a mimic, an echo forged by the spirit that entered and has waited silently for access. It wants to become your second nature, to preempt you, to imitate your form and shift your function. That's why your reflection twitched early. It was not playful, it was predatory. The spirit is watching how you see yourself. If it can interfere with your identity, it can distort your decisions. The mirror didn't glitch. It revealed. It showed you that the war is no longer outside. It's now internal. This is how possession doesn't always start with darkness. It starts with agreement. The moment you begin believing your reflection is confused, unworthy, weak, that's when the mimic begins to anchor. It doesn't need to enter you. It needs you to conform to its rhythm. A hesitation in identity. A delay in declaration. A second of surrender. That's how it begins. But heaven didn't reveal this to scare you. Michael revealed it so you would reassert ownership of your image. What mimics cannot remain where clarity reigns. And clarity is what you must now declare aloud. Type I cancel false reflections to get blessing 8749. Say your name into that mirror with fire. Declare, I am made in the image of Yahweh. I do not stutter. I do not surrender. I do not share my form with the unholy. And when you say it, don't just look, stare. Gaze into your own eyes until the mimic flinches. Because it will. Spirits cannot hold eye contact with those who walk in truth. Your reflection is sacred real estate. A battleground of visibility. Take it back. If the mirror blinked too early once, then make it blink under your fire now. Let your identity rise like thunder through the glass. This is not superstition. This is strategy. Many have fallen because they ignored the subtle cues, the distorted reflection, the early movement, the flicker. But not you. You were marked for awareness. You were chosen to confront what others excuse. And today, heaven is sharpening your sight. Your reflection is not a toy. It is a throne. Either you rule it, or something else will. But now, the mimic knows you see it. Now, the spirit knows its tactic has failed. Michael doesn't just stand guard anymore. He steps forward when you speak truth. You are not the reflection. You are the source. You are not delayed. You are divine. What entered at 3:06 a.m. wanted to pull you into imitation. But today you move with intention. And as you turn away from the mirror, you do so with full awareness. What tried to move first has now been caught, exposed, and cast down. The mimic has no place where the original rises. You are the original, formed by light, sealed in truth, and watched by the one who wars for those who recognize what others ignore. Type I reclaim my holy image to receive the blessing 9550. You stepped into a room today and felt it before you saw it. The temperature wasn't different. The light was the same. Nothing was visibly wrong. But something had already been there. A presence. Not yours. Not heaven's. Not harmless. It greeted you in silence. And not with a sound, but with pressure, with thickness, with a feeling that settled into your chest like unseen fog. You didn't walk into that room, you entered a confrontation. Because the spirit that came into your home at 3:06 a.m. no longer lingers in hallways or reflections. It has chosen a room to occupy. Archangel Michael was already there, waiting. Not to stop it, but to show it. To expose what with one settle. Heaven always reveals what it intends to remove. And today, Michael let you feel the weight of that room, not to paralyze you, but to position you. That pressure you felt wasn't an attack. It was an announcement. A claim being made over ground that never belonged to darkness. And the moment you crossed that threshold, the war intensified. Because now it's not watching. It's sitting, resting, believing it has earned the right to remain. Type I expel every unholy presence to receive the blessing 8904. You stopped mid-step, didn't you? You hesitated, looked around, took a breath, because something felt off. But you didn't run. It alone sent a signal to the heavens. You are ready. You are no longer unaware. And that room, be it your office, your living space, your child's bedroom, has now become a spiritual courtroom. Something is on trial, and your voice is the verdict. You don't need oil in your hand to begin. You need revelation in your mouth. That's why you're reading this. Because what hides in comfort is now being summoned into the light. This spirit, this lingering force, didn't claim your house all at once. It nested, slowly, over time. It studied which room you neglected spiritually, which space you stopped praying in, which door you stopped anointing. It's the one it chose, not out of preference but out of strategy. It chose the room that you treated as normal. But nothing in your life is normal now. Not after 3:06 a.m. This isn't paranoia. It's prophecy. And prophecy demands action. Michael won't act unless you do. The throne of that room must be overturned by your decree. Type I take back the atmosphere to get blessing 9313. Start with this. Walk back into that room. Even if your knees tremble. Even if your skin crawls. Even if it's the last place you want to go. That's where the altar must be built. Speak aloud. This room is no longer neutral. Every corner belongs to the kingdom. No presence may dwell here but light. Walk slowly, deliberately. Pray. Declare. Clean. Open the windows if needed. Burn incense if you must. But let the spirit that dared to rest there know you are not the same person it entered to find. You are now anointed with awareness, and awareness is dangerous to darkness. What once claimed space through your silence must now flee through your sound. It can't survive confrontation. I'd hope you'd overlook it, that you'd treat this sensation like stress, like atmosphere, like mood. But it wasn't. It was occupation, unauthorized, uninvited, but no longer unnoticed. You have spotted the trespasser, and heaven stands behind you, sword drawn, waiting for your declaration to become a sentence. What entered must exit. What rested must flee. What washed must now run. Don't just cleanse the room. Reclaim it. Dedicate it. Leave your worship playing in it for hours. Post scripture on the walls. Let the sound of your voice rewire the air. Because this isn't just about expelling something. It's about enthroning something greater. Let the Spirit of God take residence again. Let Michael stand at the door as guard, not judge. This is not just about cleansing space. It's about declaring territory. And after today, that room will never feel the same. Not because it's haunted, but because it's been made holy. Top, I declare my house holy ground to receive the blessing 9977. The sun is beginning to lower. You can feel it, not just in the sky, but in your soul. The hours have moved like prophecy unfolding. What started at 3:06 a.m. with silence and unseen movement has become a full-blown revelation. You now know you were never alone. Not then, not now. Something entered, but so did something greater. Archangel Michael did not visit to scare you. He came to show you what heaven sees and to walk with you toward recovery, toward reclamation, toward fire. Your home is not ordinary space. Your rooms, hallways, and mirrors are no longer neutral. They are now activated terrain. Heaven has mapped them, marked them, and magnified your role within them. You are not just a tenant of a house. You are the steward of a sacred gate. What entered at 3:06 was real, but so was your response. Every prayer you whispered, every declaration you made, every door you reopened, every false voice you rejected, heaven recorded it all. Michael has remained not because of fear, but because of your faith. There are two verdicts at sunset: surrender or sovereignty. You chose sovereignty. You rose when others would have rolled over. You spoke when silence felt safer. You entered rooms when spirits hoped you'd retreat. That's why the shift happened. That's why the mimicry ceased. That's why the shadow lost its grip. You didn't just survive. You reclaimed. And that act echoed. Through time, through bloodline, through walls and ceilings, and the very ground beneath you. Your house is now a stronghold of light, a domain of destiny. But before the sun disappears completely, you must finish it. One final act of authority. Walk your threshold one last time. Declare aloud, this house is sealed by heaven. What entered must flee. What stayed without name is cast out. What watched in silence is now blind. This home is mine, and I am not alone. As those words pass through your lips, Michael will shift. His sword will lower. His mission, Kabli. You did not need to see him. You only needed to respond. And you did. You responded with fire. The sunset is not a deadline. It's a beginning. This is where it starts, not where it ends. What entered at 3:06 a.m. underestimated who you were. But heaven knew. And now, your home stands as testimony that darkness cannot dwell where divine awareness rises. You are no longer the visited. You are the gatekeeper. And this is no longer just your house. It's holy ground. If this word has touched your spirit and stirred a fresh sense of boldness within, we invite you to respond with a super thanks of $20. Your support allows us to continue offering prophetic insight, comfort, and strength to those navigating the journey from betrayal to breakthrough. You can also give through PayPal by clicking the support here link in the video description. Every gift, no matter the size, helps us reach more hearts with messages of hope, truth, and encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you stay connected to spirit-led direction, timely revelation, and words of life designed to uplift you in every season. Type I am the keeper of light to receive the blessing 10,008.